When I'm helping a new client understand how to think about the new way of digital advertising, and we get down to the foundational practices and mindset on how to think about this stuff, I always ask them to imagine that the algorithms that they're working with are like a super literal intern. The intern's going to work really hard. They're going to take on board the things that you tell them. They're going to do all the research that you point them towards. They're going to do their own research. But in the end, they're going to be completely literal about what you tell them to do because they don't want to lose their internship. They don't want to get a bad report. They are entirely there for one outcome. And the advertising platforms are the same. It doesn't matter if it's Meta or Google. They're there to supply you with the outcome that you tell them that you want. Now, there are some problems with this because if you don't tell them exactly what you want, or if you try and shortcut the process of what you want by telling them you want something else, then they get confused. They go off in the wrong direction. They still work really hard, but maybe they're not getting you the most accurate information back. And if you're not giving them the raw data that they need to get the job done, then you can forget about it. I had a client last week who has got a really good business that's doing really well. It's on the up. They're on track for hockey stick growth, but there were some core things that we needed to address early on in the process to make sure that any extra ad spend that goes out there or any investment in advertising has the best chance of success. Some of those things are to do with conversion rate on their homepage. Most of their website traffic goes to their homepage. And it's a very simple, frictionless set of actions that the client needs to take on that website to become a customer. But there were some core UX, UI things going on that homepage that, from our experience, we looked at it. We knew right away that the conversion rate was not going to be high. We looked at the analytics, and that was the case. So we said, all things being equal with the traffic that you're getting right now, we're going to run some experiments on that homepage to try and manufacture a higher conversion rate of people clicking from the homepage, simply clicking from the homepage to the purchase page, which is their path of least resistance. And all the information that they need is right there. But the critical piece was the all things being equal. So we said, don't run any new ads. Don't do anything differently. And they were true to that ethos in that they ran the same ads as they were running before, but they put some new budget in and they changed their targeting. But it wasn't the targeting that was the main issue. The main issue was that they changed the objective that they gave to Meta in this case. So where previously, the week before, which was our base set of data that we were judging improvement on, was set, the ads were set to optimize for traffic, so link clicks. The new campaign that they put live, while the same audience, slightly different targeting, and to the same homepage, was instead optimized for purchase. Makes sense, right? As a business owner, you tell the algorithm, hey, I want more purchases, go get me more purchases. But here's the problem. There are two problems here. The first problem is that means the traffic's different because the algorithm's going out there trying to find people that are going to buy rather than people that are going to click. So the traffic they were getting before we made the changes to their homepage is not the same traffic that they're getting after. Plus they increased the budget. So there are more people coming to the homepage and conversion rate actually drops. And if you take that as an indicator of the conversion rate optimization, you say, oh, the changes we made didn't work, but the audience is part of that. So to change the audience means you change the outcome. The second issue is that they don't have any data flowing back to Meta when someone purchases. They only have the basic traffic pixel on the website. So that means that they told Meta, remember your literal intern, they told Meta, go get me more purchases, but we're not going to tell you when someone purchases. So you have to make your best guess on what someone who clicks is going to do. And all we have is your website traffic to go on. No other events were set up in the back end. So Meta just didn't know what was going on. So they went and tried to get traffic. They got traffic. Conversion rate was lower. There were actually like more conversions, but conversion rate was lower for the amount of money that was spent. Same thing as if you had a literal intern. go get me more purchases, but I'm not going to give you access to my backend CRM to know when I get purchases. So these are all the critical pieces that you need to understand when you're thinking about an algorithm. For better or for worse, it's just going to follow the instructions and the information that you give it. It looks good to select optimize for purchase, but if you don't have solid data flowing back into the ad platforms that tell it when someone has visited a product page, when someone has added to cart, initiated a checkout, and purchased, then the algorithm can't possibly figure out where a person is in that journey, can't figure out which piece of creative to show them, and doesn't know when it's been successful. So at the end of the internship, the intern says, I don't know if I did a good job or not because I've got no data. Same thing goes for lead generation. So you can set up your platform and say, get me some leads. That can be your objective in the advertising platform. Go get me more leads. There are different ways you can set that up. You can say, get me the largest number of leads for the least amount of money, therefore the cheapest leads. Or you can say, give me the largest number of leads with this lead value. Even better, get me the largest number of qualified leads. And you've got marketing qualified leads and you've got sales qualified leads. It's a little bit difficult to optimize an algorithm on sales qualified leads unless you've got really good software in place. It doesn't have to be expensive software, but it has to be able to connect up to the APIs. Conversions API on the Meta side of things, Tag Manager on Google, that's able to send the data back in a way that the algorithms can understand, interpret, and use to go find the audience to match up with the outcome. So if you just set up a regular lead generation campaign and say, get me lots of leads, and the algorithm sends you a lot of leads and your salespeople call those leads and none of them buy, I've seen so many clients say, well, Facebook doesn't work for lead generation. Facebook doesn't work for lead generation if you don't give it enough information to work with. If you don't qualify the leads, if you don't have a set of criteria that tells the algorithm that this is a qualified lead and this is an unqualified lead. And the more steps you can put in that process to send more information back to the algorithms, the better it can figure out who a person is, where they are in that journey, and whether or not they're likely to turn into a qualified lead. And then when they do purchase, it can take all of that data that you've been sending it over a period of time and understand who the next person is who's likely to buy and what they've done so far. What websites have they visited? How many times have they viewed your ads? Which ads have they viewed? Which have they clicked on? Which have they engaged with? You have to feed the algorithm with really good data. And that's where your technology stack comes into things and why it's so important. You can't just set up a website and then set up a Facebook ad account, run traffic, and hope for the best. All these pieces of the system, they're nerdy, they're down in the weeds, and they can be a little bit complex to set up, but they're critically important to your success. Now, let's say you have all that set up. You've got data flowing. Maybe you've got it going for months now, and you're using the algorithmic features of Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Google, YouTube, but you have a desire to keep your hand on that rudder and make changes every week. This is the most difficult thing to do right now. It's to give up the control. It feels like we're giving up control to the algorithms, to the machines to figure this stuff out for us. And in the early days, it may look like it's not able to figure it out. And then we get itchy. We want to press the buttons. We want to turn off the ads. We want to completely turn off the campaigns and move to another platform, move budgets around. And that's the worst thing you can do. Now, I'm not saying abdicate all responsibility and just say the algorithms can have at it. You have to be looking at specific assets in your customer journey and how the customers are interacting with them on the platform and how the platform is treating those assets. If you've got an asset that's getting a really low CPM, cost per 1,000 views, and a low click-through rate, then that is being used at the very top of the customer journey, at the very start, when that customer is being introduced to the problem or to your solution. That one will probably have a very low conversion rate. And traditionally, we might have turned one of those ads off. But if you've got another ad that is doing a really good job of converting, it has a high conversion rate, maybe it has a really high frequency, means it's being shown to people over and over and over again, It's got a high click-through rate and a high purchase rate, but a really expensive CPM. Sometimes you might want to turn that off because it's too expensive to get people to it. But those two ads, and this is very simplistic, it's a lot more complicated than this, but those two ads are actually working in concert. Those two ads are doing a job for you. One of them is setting it up and the other one is taking it home. If you turn one of those ads off, your entire account will stop working as efficiently. It's a very profitable skill to learn, to trust in the algorithm. But you can only trust in the algorithm if you have set everything up properly, if you've given it the tracking, if you've given it the data, and you've given it the very specific set of instructions that it needs in order to do its job properly. Come back to the intern. It will bash its head against the wall doing what you tell it to do. So you better make sure you've told it to do the right thing, and you've better made sure that you're giving it the feedback loop it needs to know it's doing the right thing, and conversely, to know it's doing the wrong thing and adjust for that. But I get it. It's really hard to do. We're reprogramming ourselves based on decades of past experience. We do not have that strong muscle that says it's okay to let it go. I have another client I've worked with for 4 or 5 years. I just had a call with them this evening, and we're seeing unprecedented results over the last 3 months. The difference between the previous period of time and the last few months is that I was sharing duties with another agency, and I was there to help make decisions, but I was not there to run the day-to-day of the account. That changed 4 months ago, and through very specific data gathering and reporting with the client, we've gotten to really understand and get a finger on the pulse of what this algorithm is doing. This client had a previous history of wanting to keep the hand on the tiller and make changes every week. We continue to meet every week, but now we've got a spreadsheet that goes back for months and shows them all the changes that we made in a quick snapshot and what those changes resulted in. So now if we get stuck on something and we look at it and we say, oh, this was a bad week, we had one of those last week. Instead of we're going to blow it all up and start again, we've got the context to look at in our spreadsheet. And it's rudimentary. It's not high tech. It's a spreadsheet where we say, hey, last time this happened, it actually only lasted a week. Let's look at the data and figure out what's going on here and see if we need to change anything or not. 9 times out of 10, we're changing very little on a weekly basis. We still meet every week, but we're discussing new creative, new ideas, and we're coming up with new frameworks for things to try in the future instead of scratching our heads, all looking at the numbers together for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then turning off a bunch of ads and turning on a bunch more, only to do the same thing a week later. All that to say, it's a difficult skill. Learning to trust the algorithm when you've got good data flowing is something we all need to learn. But I've seen it. The proof is in the pudding. It works. These systems are getting really smart. The ad networks have put an awful lot of money into this machine learning, and they're reaping the benefits. Those of us who are willing to give some control to the algorithm and learn how to analyze the data we're getting back out are the ones that are succeeding and will continue to succeed in the long term without having to do as much work. So we can focus more on coming up with new assets that we can add to the mix rather than replace what we've got and constantly start from zero every week, every month. There is no way to trick the algorithm. Trying to trick the algorithm is a misnomer anyway. It doesn't make any sense. The machine learning is trying to do what you want it to do. It's using all the information it has in its big data database to get you the thing that you tell it to get you. It wants you to do well. Think about that. Why would it want you to fail? Why would it want you to reduce budgets? Why would it want you to go to another platform? It doesn't make any fiscal sense, any business sense at all for it to be fighting against you. So don't fight against it. Use the algorithms the way they're meant to be used and continue to get better and better at keeping up with the tools and the data sets to push that information back into them so they can learn and tell you what you should be doing. Because if you're paying attention, the information that they give you in the reports will tell you what you should be doing. It's difficult for a lot of us to get over that, but that's what the day-to-day is. The day-to-day is no longer that you have to come up with everything, understand everything, and do all the work. Instead, it's a lot more about having a proper foundational setup and in honing your analytical skills. If you learn more about what the reports are trying to tell you and you dig into that data in a granular way, you're going to find that the insights are going to stand out to you. They're going to jump off the page. It's going to be easy for you to understand how to go about making a change that makes your ad account more stable. And that's what we're all in it for. We want our ad accounts to be stable. If you are getting a 5x, 10x return on your advertising, you want to be able to spend more. You want to be able to trust that if you spend more, it's going to keep giving you that same return so that you can spend more. I see so many businesses that are stuck spending the same amount or reducing their budgets because they just can't predictably scale their spend in a reliable way that they can count on. And that's what I want for all of you. I want everybody to be able to use these systems the way they were written, the way that the really smart developers have put this together. If you can get that into your day-to-day routine and take time, flex that muscle, understand how these systems work, set things up in a methodical way, learn how the technology stacks work, understand what Conversions API is, understand how Google wants to receive data back, and set that all up, or reach out to someone who can help you with that. If you can get that all figured out, your advertising life a year from now is going to be so much easier and so much more rewarding. So I hope that foundational explanation is helpful. I've tried to keep the jargon to a minimum, but sometimes I slip into it. So if there's anything you need clarification on, anything you need help with, anything that doesn't appear to be clear or that you plain disagree with and you want to have a discussion about, just hit me up in the comments, send me a DM. Happy to talk about all this stuff. It's what we do all day. And really, if we all work together on this stuff and help share that knowledge around, we'll all get smarter and our advertising systems will work better. See you next time.